I'm happy to share with you our project, which we entitled IWASTO, that stands for Integrated Waste Analysis, Survey, and Technological Options. So again, my name is Maria Antonia Tanchuling from Institute of Civil Engineering, UP Diliman. Next slide, please. So as been mentioned by Dr. Blanco in the program introduction, we know that solid waste is one of the main pollutants of our waterways, which eventually end up in Manila Bay. Next slide, please. Next slide. So in Metro Manila alone, it's estimated that we generate 9.2 million kilos of wastes, which somehow end up in Manila Bay. No? Those that end up in the esteros eventually would end up in Manila Bay. So here on the right illustration are the distribution among the cities, no? The contribution of waste from the different cities. But let us remember that, as we have shown earlier, that Manila Bay watershed is quite huge, no? And Metro Manila, or the National Capital Region, is just one part of this. Okay, next slide, please. So how do we deal with it? We'd like to use the hierarchy of waste management options, wherein we'd like to prioritize those that divert waste from being disposed. No, these are the preferred options. Of course, we start with reducing waste, meaning we consume less, so we generate less, or we reuse our materials so that we lessen the amount of waste that we generate, and then we try to recover, no, whatever are there by recovering the nutrients or recycling in terms of, in the case of plastics. And then as least preferred options are those we call for disposal. So the least preferred one is dumping in landfills. And then the next one are waste to energy technologies. So we'd like to prioritize diversion because we can also use the framework of circular economy, wherein we are able to recover materials and lessen the production of new materials. Next slide, please. So using this framework, we came up with this concept, this conceptual framework for our project. So we'd like to propose and utilize, you know, certain technologies, the waste utilization technologies, which are appropriate for communities. So what makes them appropriate? We have to consider the waste characteristics, the practices in that locality, and then also to consider environmental, social, economic, and the technical aspects. So to be able to arrive at a sustainable waste management system, we also need the enablers. No? Hindi naman pwedeng panay technology. So we need the policy support, how these technologies would work. And of course, it's very important is the involvement of the community. Yeah. Next slide, please. So using this framework, we came up with 8 objectives. The first one is to be able to describe the characteristics of waste from the LGUs. No? So initially, what we have defined, because Manila, so for the 2 years, what we can cover are the rivers that are defined here: Pasig, Navotas, Malabon, and Marilao, Malinta, Obanto. Okay. Okay. And then to evaluate waste management practices and conditions in the LGUs, which are part of the said study areas. to enhance and recommend appropriate waste utilization technologies based on the waste characteristics. So we will work on the existing technologies, no, and we will not develop new ones, just enhance whatever is there. And then to determine also available waste management facilities and locate possible sites that can be used in the future. This is always a problem, no? Siting, where is the best site to locate? Where do we put up our facilities? Okay, next slide, please. We go to the fifth objective, which is we'd like to forecast scenarios in the future regarding waste generation and recommend management strategies. We anticipate an increase in population, so we'd like to plan for those scenarios. And then we'd also like to test on a pilot scale at least 2 waste utilization technologies to process biodegradable and plastic waste. No? From many WACS studies, we see that there's a big component in our waste which is composed of biodegradable, yung nabubulok. So these are the kitchen waste, the food waste, even yard waste. So that's almost 50%. So we have to deal with that because they shouldn't be ending up in disposal sites. And also plastic waste, which we know is a huge global problem now. We're said to be the 3rd largest contributor of plastic pollution in the ocean. So we need to address that. So these 2 technologies, at least 2 technologies, we will make use of the ones developed by DOST. No? Later, I have photos for them, which I can discuss a bit more. And then for the policy side, we'd like to be able to help to improve the enforcement of RA 9003 and look at it, evaluate where the barriers are, why we cannot implement it well. And then also to be able to systematize the information regarding solid waste management through a database and an app which can be used by policymakers. I think Ms. Arca was able to explain it very well that we really need evidence-based policies. You know, we need all this data and information to improve our policy-making process. The decisions that we make should be made based on science, no, and evidence. So those are our 8 objectives. Next slide, please. So for the methodology, these are what we will employ for the assessment of the solid waste management in the cities and municipalities. We will do WACS, waste analysis and characterization studies. We will also make use of secondary data that are there and maybe improve some on the, the categorization. We need to be more specific, for example, for plastics. And then we want to look at inventory of the waste management facilities. What do we have out there? For example, we keep on saying we need to recycle, but the truth is we don't have the infrastructure for recycling. So those are the things that we want to address also. We also want to collect the ordinances that are there and evaluate its enforcement and simulation of future waste generation rates. Next slide, please. Next slide is here are the setting up of appropriate waste utilization technologies. For now, we'd like to use the technologies developed by DOST, ITTI, specifically the plastic densifier, wherein they process LDPE. These are the film plastic sandbags, and to be mixed with used cooking oil to come up with plastic bricks. No? The LDPEs, for now, ngayon po, siya yung hindi kinokolekta. ng ating mga junk shops. So yan yung, and that's also the, if you look at our plastic wastes, majority of it is composed of LDPEs. And then that's low density polyethylene. And then for the biodegradable component, we're looking at the biogas digester and also bioreactor. No? And we'd like to set it up on a community level and look at the entire cycle of the system, no? Starting from collection of waste, which is a problem. How do we really consolidate to get enough feedstock of the quality that we need, and also look at the emissions, all those aspects. And then all the data, we move here to the next methodology. We'd like to systematize the data. We'd like to show them in maps. And finally, we'd like to come up with policy recommendations. There. The next slide would show us the activities that we will be doing. Next slide, please. So, maraming salamat po. Nandito po kayo ngayon, and because we'd be really closely coordinating with the LGUs. Some of you we have already met. Maraming salamat po. The government agency, especially NSWMC, and of course non-government organizations, because they're the ones who are working with the communities. We need a close coordination with all of these agencies. And then collaboration with other projects that are ongoing on socio-economic demographic characterization. And then we'd also like to do an input-output analysis of the waste utilization technology, because we'd like to look at it on a systems level, and then analyze the scenarios. So this is scenario analysis. And then next slide, please. And then, so we'll have the inventory of the existing facilities and assessment of future potential sites. From the inventory, we'd like to map them, because it's always good to see your data on a spatial level. And then here we can also identify saan pa ba yung kulang, where we need to have more, let's say, MRFs or where we can consolidate the recyclables. And then we'd like to set up the waste utilization technologies with monitoring tools for emissions. And of course, together with that, we'd like it to be sustainable. So there's going to be training for the communities who will later on operate those. And as I've said, no, I'd like to emphasize, there should be a buy-in of the communities. No, it is something that they should be involved with, because later on it's them who will own the technology. And then finally is the database and app development, which we'd like to be publicly available, because here it's a tool also for monitoring how the LGUs are complying, and it's good, no, when the public is informed about the situation, about what is happening regarding solid waste management. Yeah, to be able to all of those, next slide, please. I'm going to show you now I think the next slide is the organizational chart. So as you have seen, our activities encompass many disciplines. That's why our team is also is multidisciplinary. So again, I'm the lead, and our host today, the MC Angela Aquino, is the overall research supervisor. And then we have a team dealing with communications, the one in pink. So I'll mention their names. Rhoda is here. And then in the one in violet, this is for community development and community organizing. We have a professor from UP, Lisa Rosell, and Our staff here are Camille Castillejos and John Anthony Cruz. And then the yellow band would show the specialists for the technologies. So the yellow band is for the biodegradable component. We have Dr. Annalisa Rollion and Nuriza Tibonsadi. And our researchers here are Raven Lingating and Cesar Abad. We also have a special team just dealing with the plastic densifier. For the plastic technology is Assistant Professor Maria Bridola. And then the researchers are Darwin Eugenio and Hannah Lu Argota. And to do the life cycle analysis is Justine Serranilla. And we also have the administrative staff, Joel Bordas and Homer Pernia. So it's a huge team. So we really hope we are able to do our objectives. We are able to achieve our objectives, of course, with your cooperation. So the last slide is the thank you slide. The last slide, please. Yeah. Thank you so much. And just to show you, this is the photo of the team, and it's one of the last activities we had before the lockdown. So we are very eager to work on this project and to collaborate with all of you. Thank you so much.